Nats Chat is brought to you by Walters. This weekend at Walters, Bottomless Brunch begins at 11 a.m. on both Saturday and Sunday. Enjoy bottomless mimosas, Bloody Marys, Truly, and Bud Light for only $20 with your purchase of a brunch entree. Be it beer, burgers, bourbon, or baseball, we encourage you to walk on over to Walters.
With plenty of room indoors or outside on the covered patio, contact Brett at waltersdc.com to reserve your space today.
Here's the pitch. Swinging, it's lofted in the air to left. Drifting back on this one, Yelich to the warning track, to the wall, and this game is tied. It's gone. Yadiel Hernandez, an opposite field home run. Home run number 6 for Hernandez. And the Nationals answer back with a game-tying run.
3 balls, 2 strikes. Guerra kicks, he delivers. Swing and a long drive. Center field, way back. Going, gone, goodbye. It's a grand slam for Christian Yelich, a 454-foot blast for his second home run of the game and 8th of the year. He has driven in 6 runs in this game, and he has broken it wide open. It's now the Brewers 9 and the Nationals 4. Hader to the belt. It'll be a 2-2 to Adrian Sanchez, the pinch hitter. And it swung on and missed, struck him out with the elevated fastball up and away. And the game is over. Hader and the Brewers hold on. The Nationals certainly made them work for it in the 9th inning.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Sunday, August 22nd, 2021. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Mark Zuckerman is off. Tim Shovers is working, but not available until later. And so it is you, it is me. As I tape this right now, it is Saturday night. I am at the end of a day in which we at our house had a dual birthday party for my son, who on Monday will turn 4, and my daughter, who on Friday turn 1. I was up until 6 a.m. on Friday night / Saturday morning doing this podcast and then my own podcast. So if I sound even more incoherent than usual, you know why. I have my excuse. But anyway, it is nice to be with you, as is always the case. And if you're like me and you watched that Nats game on Saturday, well, at least know that you did not suffer alone. A 9-6 loss at the National League Central leading Milwaukee Brewers in Game 2 of a 3-game series. We'll get to the specifics momentarily, but 4 hours, 18 minutes. The game took 4 hours, 18 minutes. A 9-inning baseball game in 2021 took 4 hours, 18 minutes. And of course, the thing is, this is not new. This happens. I mean, I don't want to say that it happens often, but this happens. And that to me is inexcusable. A 4-hour, 18-minute, 9-inning baseball game. That is so bad for the sport of baseball. Nobody in 2021 has the time or the desire to watch a baseball game that lasts for 4 hours, 18 minutes. And I say this as someone who loves baseball, and I know that all of you listening love baseball, or at the very least, love the Nats. But, you know, this idea of like, well, this is the beauty of baseball. There is no clock. No, that's not the beauty of baseball, okay? This is the problem with baseball, especially right now. The games are too long. People love to talk about how, you know, the ball being in play, not enough is the problem. Or, you know, the abundance of plate appearances that end in what are the 3 true outcomes? Home run, walk, strikeout. That's the problem. To me, those things don't matter nearly as much as just the lengths of games. If these games were shorter, I don't think people would care all that much about the ball not being in play all that much, or the 3 true outcomes being all over the place. If the games were on average 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes, you wouldn't be caught up in the ball not being in play enough. The games are too long. It's as simple as that. Okay, there's too much time between pitches. You have relievers who aren't good and don't throw strikes. And because so many teams are so bullpen reliant, you see these relievers all the time. The Nats and Brewers on Saturday combined to use 13 pitchers. 13, and it felt like all of them weren't good. Like, it felt like all of them couldn't get the job done. Brewers are a big analytics team. You know me. I love analytics. Talk about them all the time. I'm a big believer in them. But I am the first to admit that analytics in many ways are not good for the aesthetics of the game. And this game on Saturday between the Nats and Brewers was an example of that. And this is something that baseball, at some point, instead of talking about trying to fix, needs to actually fix, okay? And I don't know that it'll ever happen, but I didn't want to just sit here and not make mention of this game taking 4 hours, 18 minutes. Anyway, to the game. There were some very good performances by potential building blocks for the Nats. And I want to focus on those because they matter much more than the outcome of this game. We've talked about that. This portion of the Nats season, this is not about wins and losses. This is about the who behind the what. The season is no longer about the what. The season now is about the who. The Nats fall to 53-69 on the season with this loss, which, oh, by the way, did end the Nationals' 3-game winning streak. But can we talk about Lane Thomas? I don't know that any Nationals player was more impressive on Saturday than Lane Thomas.
And the Nationals back in front by 2. It's Washington 3 and Milwaukee 1. Thomas scoring all the way from first base.
Lane Thomas is the guy who the Nats got from the St. Louis Cardinals for John Lester, right? The Nats on July 30th actually trading Lester to the Cards for Thomas as Mike Rizzo, and maybe the ultimate example of him being the ninja general manager that I have called him to be for years, got a team to give up something for John Lester and his 5.02 ERA. And I got a kick out of some of the people who at the time of the trade said, yeah, but Lane Thomas is a depreciated prospect. Who cares? If the Nats got back a bag of balls for John Lester, that was a win. Instead, the Nats got back a guy in Lane Thomas whose stock, yes, had gone down, but a guy also who has talent. And we are seeing that talent when this guy plays. So first of all, very interestingly, David Martinez had Lane Thomas as the Nats starting center fielder and number 1 batter on Saturday, right? Very notable to see Thomas in Victor Robles' position and spot in the batting order on Saturday. And boy, did Lane Thomas deliver. He reached base 4 times, went 2 for 3 with a double, a single, and 2 walks, and he had a great outfield assist.
Harper ready, here it is. Curveball hit in the air to center field and deep. Lane Thomas has a play, though, drifting back, shy of the track. He'll make the catch. Tagging at first, trying to go to second is Urias. The throw in is there in plenty of time. Escobar tags him out, and it was not close. What a throw by Lane Thomas. He made the catch shy of the warning track.
So Thomas had a leadoff opposite field double to the right center field gap in the Nats' 2-run first. Thomas had a leadoff 6-pitch walk in the top of the third. Thomas had a 1-out single in the Nats' 1-run fifth. Thomas drew a leadoff 8-pitch walk in the Nats' 2-run ninth. And Thomas had a great defensive play for a double play for the first 2 outs in the bottom of the 6th. He caught a deep fly ball off the bat of Jace Peterson and then threw out Luis Urias at second base in his attempt to tag up from first base. And how about that throw, huh? I mean, that was some rocket from the arm of Lane Thomas. The throw was tremendous. No bounce, essentially right on target, and Urias was out by a mile. I mean, that wasn't even close. And that was a play that made sense from a base running standpoint. That was a deep fly ball. You figured Urias had at least a decent shot to tag up at second base, was going to take a near perfect throw, and that's essentially what Lane Thomas delivered. Remember, too, Lane Thomas was a Nat starter on Friday night in that 4-1 win at the Brewers. He was a Nat starting left fielder in that game, was a number 6 batter for the Nats in that game, and he delivered in that game. He had himself 2 hits in that game, including a big 2-run triple, a 2-out, 2-run opposite field triple to right field in the top of the 4th. He also had a 1-out full count single in the top of the 8th. It is an ultra small sample size with Lane Thomas. Maybe this guy's never heard from again after what he did on Saturday, but 15 plate appearances for the Nats so far, 6 hits and 4 walks. And even if Lane Thomas is never anything more than a 4th or even 5th outfielder for the Nats, there's value in that. And that you got that for John Lester and his 5.02 ERA really is something. So you go Lane Thomas. A tremendous job by him on Saturday. Another young potential building block for the Nats who shined on Saturday, Tres Barrera. So, of course, we have been seeing a lot of another young potential building block for the Nats at catcher recently in Riley Adams, who himself has been doing really well. Part of the reason we've seen a lot of Riley Adams is that he has been doing so well. And Tres Barrera, off initially actually looking pretty good, had kind of cooled off here. Well, it was Barrera's turn on Saturday to stand out. He was the Nats starting catcher and number 7 batter in this 9-6 loss at the Brewers. He reached base 3 times, 2 for 4 with 2 singles and a walk. And I want you to listen to the specifics of his plate appearances because you talk about battling. Tres Barrera battled in the batter's box on Saturday. So his first hit of the game, a 2-out single in the bottom of the 4th. That single came despite him having been down to the count at 1.12. The single concluded a 12-pitch plate appearance. Barrera's second hit of the game, a full count single in the top of the 6th. That hit came despite him having been down in that count at 1.02. That single concluded an 8-pitch plate appearance. And then time number 3 for Tres Barrera reaching base on Saturday, a 2-out, bases-loaded 7-pitch walk off Brewers closer Josh Hader in what ended up being a 2-run Nationals 9th inning. That walk cut the Nats deficit to 9-6.
Here's the set now. And the pitch. High and away, outside, ball 4. Barrera walks with the bases loaded to drive in his 8th run of the year in the big leagues.
Those are 3 wars that Tres Barrera waged in the batter's box. A 12-pitch plate appearance in which he goes from being down 1-2 at one point to authoring a 2-out single. An 8-pitch plate appearance in which he goes from being down at 1.02 to authoring a full count single. And then facing one of the more intimidating pitchers in the majors, right? The Brewers closer, Josh Hader, Darth Hader, the flamethrower, and Barrera is able to work a bases-loaded 7-pitch walk to cut the Nats deficit to 3. Really good job offensively by Tres Barrera on Saturday. And I say it that way because Tres did have a defensive boo-boo in the game. He committed a catcher's interference error that began the Brewers' 5-run 8th. We'll get to that in just a bit. I don't know, is it me or are we seeing a lot of catcher's interference errors here recently? I feel like we are. I'm not sure why that is exactly, but Barrera did have one there in that Brewers 5-run 8th inning. But otherwise, really good game for Tres Barrera. I thought we saw some more good things from Carter Kieboom on Saturday. He was, again, the Nats starting third baseman, was batting in the number 5 spot. He got on base 2 times, 1 for 4 with an RBI single and a walk. He had a 1-out 4-pitch walk in the top of the first, and he had a 1-out opposite field bases-loaded RBI single to right field off Hader in that Nats 2-run 9th to cut the Nats deficit to 9-5. And when we talk about, potential building blocks and how they do down the stretch of the season, there's also something to be said for these, experiences that you accumulate, right? And this was an experience for Carter Kieboom. No, this was not Game 7 of the World Series, but this was a bases-loaded situation in the top of the 9th inning against one of the more, again, intimidating pitchers in the majors in Josh Hader. That's now an experience that Carter Kieboom has had, and it's an experience in which he won. Carter Kieboom won the battle. RBI single off Hader.
Now the pitch. Swinging a line drive to right. Coming over. Peterson can't get it. Drops in for a hit. 1 run will score.
And that's something that hopefully, Kieboom can file away. And the next time he's in a spot like that or similar to that, comparable to that, he can draw from that experience, and he can understand, hey, I can do this. I can hit against someone like a Josh Hader. Now, look, Hader at times in his outing didn't look like he was on at all, So, maybe Hader just was off for the most part in that 9th inning, although initially to me didn't look that off. But whatever the case may be, that's an experience for Carter Kieboom, the likes of which I think he can draw from in the future. So I really like seeing that from him. So yes, young potential building blocks for the Nationals did deliver again in this game on Saturday, and that's what matters more than anything, including the outcome. Nats Chat is sponsored by Silver Branch Brewing Company, located in downtown Silver Spring, only a 1-minute walk from the Silver Spring Metro station. Silver Branch is a perfect jumping-off point to Metro down to the game. Park at the Cameron Street parking lot and meet up with friends for a beer and a bite to eat before metroing down. You can also get Silver Branch beer at Nationals Park. Beyond the Gnome World, one of Silver Branch's 4 flagship beers, is available at District Drafts at Section 223. Brewed to be light and refreshing, Beyond the Gnome World won a gold medal for the Saison beer style at the Great American Beer Festival last year. Beyond the Gnome World is deliciously dry and thirst-quenching and the perfect beer for hot summertime ball games. You may not be familiar with Saison, but take our word for it, baseball season is the perfect season for Saison, and buying from District Drafts to support your local breweries is a gnome run. Go to Section 223 and try Beyond the Gnome World the next time that you're at Nats Park, and make sure you stop by Silver Branch, located in Metro Plaza, just steps from the Silver Spring Metro. Silver Branch Brewing Company, when you come in, let them know that the Nats Chat podcast sent you.
Hey Nats fans, this is Eric Bramer, play-by-play broadcaster for the Fredericksburg Nationals. Time is running out to see the Fred Nats in their inaugural 2021 season at beautiful new Fred Nats Ballpark. With promotions every night of the week and a talented roster that includes Jackson Rutledge, Jeremy De La Rosa, Brandon Bossier, Yordi Barley, and many more, the time's never been better to see tomorrow's Washington Nationals stars today. Visit frednats.com for ticket information and follow us on social media at FXBGNats for the latest updates.
Klobuchar sets, pitch to Narvaez, swinging a ground ball, hits the pitcher in the foot, or did it? It deflects into center field for a hit. Rounding third, coming in to score is Yelich, and the Brewers take the lead. Escobar with his 73rd run batted into the year, and this has been a nightmarish bottom of the fifth inning for the Nationals defensively and with their bullpen.
So the Nats did lose this game. The Nats, in fact, blew a 3-1 fifth inning lead in this game. And the culprit was a Nats bullpen that I thought lately had been pretty good, all things considered. I mean, it's all relative. I get that. The problem is that the Nats, in almost always using at least, 3 relievers in a game, are subjecting themselves to the reality that on any given day/night, not every reliever you use is going to have it. Basically, it's a matter of odds. It's like, all right, if you dip into something and you have to keep drawing from that something, 1 guy, 2 guys, 3 guys, 4 guys, what are the odds that all 4 are just on in that given game? Probably not that high. And so you're seeing this here where, in these bullpen outings, the majority of the guys may look good, but 1 or 2 don't, and that's enough to harm you. And sure enough, multiple Nats relievers did not have it in this game on Saturday. Ultimately, David Martinez utilized 5 Nats relievers in this game. The 5 relievers combined to allow 6 runs, 5 earned, in 3 2/3 innings. Gabe Klobuchar was the first man called upon. He came into the game bottom of the 5th with runners at the corners, 1 out, and the Nats nursing a 3-1 lead, and something inexcusable happened in this inning. So he gave up a 1-out RBI single to the first batter he faced, Christian Yelich. Klobuchar then allowed another inherited runner to score on an Omar Narvaez pop-out to Ryan Zimmerman in foul territory. What ended up being something you almost never see, an RBI sacrifice fly on a pop-out in foul territory in front of a dugout.
Now the set and Klobuchar's pitch swung on and popped up. Right side foul ground, Zimmerman racing in under it and makes the grab. And no one's covering the plate. Runner breaks for the plate. Zimmerman dives. Safe. Oh, my.
This was amateur hour defensively by the Nationals. The reason that this ended up being a sac fly is that no Nat covered home plate. Zimmerman catches the pop out near a dugout and then has to run himself to home plate. So he catches the baseball. He kind of pauses for a second, recognizing that Colton Wong, who had been on third base and astutely noticed nobody was covering home plate, had taken off for home plate. Zimmerman says to himself, oh gosh, I better start hustling. He hustles and he doesn't get there in time. And that defensive screw-up was really embarrassing. That's the kind of thing that bad teams do. And the Nats are a bad team this year. And that just is one of those things where you're like, the Nats have been losing a lot, but for the most part, they've lost, with dignity, I would say, this season. Certainly lately, certainly since the sell-off. That was a play without dignity, a play without honor for the Nationals. And I guess over the course of a season, you're going to have those, right? But that was a big-time screw-up. Somebody needed to cover home plate, whether it was Klobuchar or Tres Barrera or Carter Kieboom, somebody needed to cover home. Now, it was a weird play because Tres Barrera got up from behind the plate to try to field the pop-out, and in getting up to try to field the pop-out, he actually ran into the batter, Omar Narvaez. So I don't know if that weirded things out to where whoever was supposed to cover home plate didn't, but the thing is, sometimes you have to do something that's called being a baseball player. So even if it's not your responsibility to cover home, recognize that nobody's covering home and cover home. To me, Carter Kieboom should have covered home, and he didn't. Nobody did. And you ended up having a run score there. Klobuchar then gave up a 2-out RBI single to Eduardo Escobar for a 4-3 Brewers lead.
We got to get somebody back. Once they see Zim, going to catch the ball.
So that was the first problem area for the Nats bullpen on Saturday. Gabe Klobuchar, the adventures of Klobo, and especially that defensive screw-up, which certainly was not all on Gabe Klobuchar. Ryan Harper then pitched, and he actually tossed a scoreless bottom of the 6th. He faced 2 batters in the bottom of the 7th, struck out Willy Adames to begin things, did then issue a hit-by-pitch to Colton Wong. Andres Machado then came into the game, faced 4 batters in the bottom of the 6th, did get the final 2 outs, although not before loading the bases via a 2-out hit-by-pitch of Omar Narvaez on a 1-2 pitch, followed by a 2-out 6-pitch walk of Eduardo Escobar. You can see why this game lasted for 4 hours, 18 minutes. A lot of hit-by-pitches, a lot of walks, a lot of deep counts, those types of things. Then came Javy Guerra. Javy Guerra was a complete mess in what ended up being a 5-run Brewers 8th inning. This really ended up being one of the worst outings a Nats reliever has had this season. So the inning began with that Tres Barrera catcher's interference error with Luis Urias batting. Okay, fine. But then came a bunch of problems. Guerra giving up a single to Jace Peterson on a 1-2 pitch. Guerra issuing a hit-by pitch of Jackie Bradley Jr. to load the bases with no outs. Guerra then gets an out, but then gives up a 1-out, bases loaded, guess what? Hit-by pitch to Colton Wong. Guerra then gave up a 1-out, full count, grand slam to Christian Yelich on an absolute bomb to right center field for a 9-4 Brewers lead. That was the blow. If you were watching the game, you had a sense something like that might be coming. You know, I think we've learned enough about this Nats team at this point to know that bad things can be coming. Like, you develop a sense almost when you watch a team throughout a season of when gloom and doom is legit and when the bottom is about to fall out. And in watching this inning, it sure felt like the bottom was going to fall out. And boy, did it ever. That was some shot by Christian Yelich, who has not had a great season when it comes to hitting for power, but he's having his way in this series, that's for sure. The homer came on the 9th pitch of a plate appearance in which Guerra had Yelich down at 1.12. And the grand slam was indeed grand. This was a grand slam in every sense of the phrase, a monster blast that went a projected 454 feet per StatCast. That was a moonshot off the bat of Christian Yelich. Guerra gets yanked by Davey. Jeffrey Rodriguez comes into the game, and he ends up facing 3 batters. Mercifully gets the final 2 outs. But a bad outing for Gabe Klobuchar and a really terrible outing for Javy Guerra. And the Nats are unable to come back from being down 9-4. Do trim the deficit to 9-6. But that's how the game ended. The Nats starting pitcher for the game was Paolo Espino. I actually thought that Paolo, our guy, a.k.a. the secret weapon, was better than his final line indicated, but he still wasn't very good. So Paolo in this game officially allows 3 runs in 4 1/3 innings. If you watch the game, though, Paolo really wasn't that bad. He only gave up 5 hits, a solo homer, and 4 singles. He had 6 strikeouts versus 1 walk, and he threw 54 strikes versus 25 balls on 79 pitches. So he had a better than 2-to-1 ratio in terms of strikes versus balls. I thought Paolo actually did a pretty good job. 2 of the 3 runs charged to him were inherited runners allowed to score with Gabe Klobuchar's pitching. Now, again, ultimately, that's on Paolo, and he only lasted for 4 1/3 innings, but I think it's important to, kind of look beyond just the box score here. He gave up a run in the bottom of the first on a 1-out first pitch solo homer by Christian Yelich, on another bomb by Yelich in this game to right center. The homer going a projected 414 feet per StatCast. Paolo, though, then tossed a perfect bottom of the second. He then tossed a scoreless bottom of the third, despite giving up a couple of singles. Paolo then struck out the side in a perfect bottom of the fourth, but Paolo in that bottom of the fifth gets charged with the 2 runs, both of which scored with Klobuchar's pitching. Paolo in that inning did strike out Jackie Bradley Jr. to begin things, but then issued a 1-out 9-pitch walk of pinch hitter Lorenzo Cain. There it is, another plate appearance that lasts a while, and then a 1-out single by Colton Wong before being pulled from the game. And so, here we are with Paolo, and I brought this up after the last time he pitched, and it really is something how his season lines up with the national season. Paolo Espino was doing so well through the month of June. In fact, he ended his month of June with that great spot start, that 8-4 win over the Mets at Nationals Park on June 28th. Paolo in that game, 5 scoreless innings. He came out of that game with an ERA of 2.02, a whip of 0.87, and 35 2/3 innings on the season. That was peak Paolo. The peak of Paolo was that spot start against the Mets at Nats Park on June 28th. But since then, Paolo's season has dipped down quite a bit, just like the Nats season since the end of June / start of July has fallen off. And Paolo, since that spot start against the Mets over 10 games now, including 9 starts, has an ERA of 6.30, 28 earned runs in 40 innings. So the secret weapon has not been so secret and has not been much of a weapon here over the last few months. But again, I thought he actually didn't pitch that poorly in this game on Saturday. Some other thoughts from the game. So Juan Soto, oh, by the way, got on base 4 more times on Saturday. I feel like we're taking this for granted a little bit. We shouldn't. He had 2 singles and 2 walks. He had a first pitch RBI single up the middle in the Nats 2-run first, although he later in the inning did get picked off at second base for the second out. He had a one-out intentional walk top of the 5th, had a one-out full-count single top of the 7th, 4-pitch walk in that Nats 2-run 9th inning. Juan Soto, as we speak here, has an on-base percentage on the season of .449, which is just tremendous. You know, we've said it many times. He's having a great season, even though it doesn't always feel that way. He's having a 300, 400, 500 season, but 4 more plate appearances on Saturday for Soto, resulting in him getting on base. A .449 on-base percentage is absurd, and yet that's what Soto has on the year. Yadiel Hernandez homered on Saturday. He was an starting left fielder and number 6 batter, 1 for 4, but the one was a solo homer, a leadoff game-tying opposite field homer to left field in the top of the 6th to tie the game at 4. The homer going a projected 384 feet per StatCast. Yadiel now on the season, an .816 OPS. He's done a nice job as a batter, and this was a game on Saturday in which Alcides Escobar did some good things.
Lauer sets. Thomas the lead from first. Lauer kicks and delivers home. The pitch swung on, line to left toward the line, and down and into the corner it rolls. Thomas heading for third, being waved home by Bobby Henley. The throw comes in to the shortstop Arias, who will hold it as Thomas scores on a double toward the left field corner for Alcides Escobar.
He, again, was the Nats' number 2 batter in this game, starting shortstop, 2 for 4, had an RBI double, a single, and a hit by pitch. So he got on base 3 times in this game. A hit by pitch in the Nats' 2-run first, a one-out RBI double in the top of the 5th for a 3-1 Nats lead, and he had a single on an 0-2 pitch in the Nats' 2-run 9th. I've talked about this. Alcides Escobar is the king of, the dirty hit. His hits aren't always pretty. You know, he gets a lot of, bunt hits, opposite field hits, hits that aren't exactly smoked. He takes trash counts and turns them into successful plate appearances. He'll be down 0-2, 1-2, and he'll be able to work the count in his favor, or he'll just be able to author a hit even with the count not in his favor. Like I said, he had a single on an 0-2 pitch in the Nats' 2-run 9th inning. So I give Alcides a lot of credit for the job he's done. Now, I still look at him and say to myself, okay, unless you plan on having him back next season, and maybe the Nats do, I don't know that him getting plate appearances as your number 2 batter makes a lot of sense here, especially considering his numbers have come down. I mean, for a while, it was kind of a cute, fun thing. I would noted how high Alcides' on-base percentage was with the Nats. The on-base is only at 327 now on the year with the Nats. So, it's come down. He's batting .265. He's got a 327 on base. He's only slugging .358. But we give credit where credit's due on the Nats Chat podcast. Alcides Escobar got on base 3 times on Saturday. So Game 3 at the Brewers for the Nats Sunday afternoon at 2:10. Sean Nolan versus Adrian Hauser. Hauser's having a pretty good year, 21 games, including 19 starts, has an ERA of 3.55. I have no idea what to expect from Sean Nolan. I would say, though, don't have your expectations sky high. This will only be Nolan's 2nd appearance for the Nats. They selected his contract from AAA Rochester on August 11th. Sunday is August 22nd. And this is only going to be Nolan's 2nd appearance here for the Nats. They have made it a point not to use him, even though he's been on the team for a few weeks now. The only outing he's had for the Nats was a start in a 4-1 7-inning loss at the Mets in Game 1 of a doubleheader on August 12th. That start for Nolan marked his first appearance in a Major League regular season game since October 2015. He allowed 4 runs in 3 innings on 8 hits, which were a homer and 7 singles. This is another 30-something player who the Nats have summoned from AAA Rochester this season. The list of 30-somethings called up by the Nats from AAA this year, it is a list that is like a mile long. It's incredible. It's one of the real indictments of the Nats farm system. I know that many teams have 30-somethings in those teams as farm systems, but it feels like the Nats have more than most teams, and it certainly feels like the Nats have called up many more 30-somethings than most teams do over the course of a year. But, your 30-somethings from AAA Rochester this year: Sean Nolan, Yadiel Hernandez, Gerardo Parra, Adrian Sanchez, Ryan Harper, Javy Guerra, Justin Miller, Kyle Lobstein. On and on we can go. It's been that kind of year for the Nats with the state of the farm system. We'll see what Sean Nolan ends up doing on Sunday. It still is interesting to me that Eric Fedde could be starting on Sunday, but isn't. And I talked about this with Mark on the last installment of the Nats Chat podcast. Maybe this is a nothing deal, but I just find it curious. Why are you giving a start to Sean Nolan when you don't have to? Why wouldn't you give that start to Eric Fedde? Is there something going on with Fedde? Is he hurting in some way? I don't know, but I think it's worth asking that question. given that you didn't have to do this. You don't have to be starting Sean Nolan on Sunday. Nats do have an off day on Monday before a 3-game series at the Miami Marlins Tuesday night through Thursday night. You can always email us at the Nats Chat Podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Email from Chip Lazenby. He says, I 100% supported the sell-off and then some. It no doubt makes the end of this season more interesting, not less. Having said that, I very much agree with the perspective Mark has voiced recently, that while no one is expecting to win the division, nonstop constant losing can be infectious and problematic, and it can especially demoralize young talent. If you create that culture, it's not as easy as it sounds to just turn it around with new young talent / get a better draft pick. At the end of the day, winning and losing still matter, even while keeping the bigger reboot picture in mind. Thank you for the email, first of all, Chip. I think there is truth to that, right? I think culture does matter, but I'd say a few things. Number one, the Nats have had a winning culture for years. So if you spend the final 2 months of this season not really being all that invested in wins and losses, I don't think that that's that bad. Even if you play out next season as not being all that invested in wins and losses, I don't think that that is that bad. There can still be an overall culture of we are about winning. We're building this thing back up. We do demand that you play the game a certain way, the right way. Like, it doesn't have to be an either or proposition. Now, I don't think the Nats are going to approach next season as a tanking season. I just don't get that sense at all. So especially if it's just about the rest of this season not being about wins and losses, I really don't think that that is that big of a deal. The other thing, though, too, that I would say is this. While baseball is a team sport, it's kind of like the most individual of the team sports. I mean, teamwork matters in every sport, right? But teamwork matters more, say, in football, basketball, and hockey than it does in baseball, especially when you're talking about offense in baseball. Like, what you do as a batter in baseball, for the most part, is on you. You know, now look, can your teammates help you out? Yes. Can your teammates encourage you? Sure. Can it matter who you have batting around you in a lineup? Sometimes, yes. But by and large, if you're great, you can do great, even if you're on a bad team, right? I mean, always remember, the greatest season that any Nationals player has ever had, certainly from a position-playing standpoint, was Bryce Harper's 2015. The Nats didn't make the playoffs that year, okay? Like, it's not always about your teammates. It can just be about you. Mike Trout is having maybe the greatest career that any baseball player has ever had. He has been on a bunch of bad and losing teams with the Angels. His teammates have had very little to do in terms of impacting him and not causing him to be great. So my point is, if you're a professional and you're very good at what you do, you should be able to do well. And, you know, if the team isn't all in on winning for the moment, that shouldn't derail you. Like, to me, it doesn't speak well of you if you get thrown off entirely by the fact that your team is trying to take a bigger picture view of things as opposed to being all in on that day to win that game, when doing so is pretty foolish given the circumstance. But I think generally speaking, there is something to what you're saying. You don't want to create a losing culture. And I don't think the Nats have. I don't think they have that. And I think it would take a lot for the Nats to have that. The Nats, since the start of the 2012 season, have been one of the best teams in Major League Baseball. That is not undone by, again, just the final 2 months of this season not being about wins and losses. Keep the feedback coming. You can email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet the podcast as well at @Nats_chat. On Sunday, a reminder, we are on the radio version of the Nats Chat Podcast. We air on Sunday mornings at 9 on 106.1 ESPN in Richmond. If you're in the Richmond area, please give the show a listen. If you're not in the Richmond area, you can still listen by going to ESPNRichmond.com. The Nats Chat Podcast radio show, Sunday mornings at 9 on 106.1 ESPN Richmond. A reminder, if you don't already subscribe to the podcast, please consider doing so. Also, if you haven't yet given the podcast a 5-star rating and written, just like a 1-sentence review saying how much you like the podcast, please consider doing those things. They do help us out a lot, and we do thank all of you who have done those things already. Get yourself a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt, as so many of you have. You can get one by going to natschatpodcast.square.site. That's natschatpodcast.square.site. And always know, if you wear your Nats Chat Pod t-shirt out in public, be it at Nationals Park or somewhere else, take a photo of yourself with the t-shirt, tweet it to us at @Nats_chat, and we'll retweet it. We'll make a big thing out of it because we appreciate people promoting the pod. Soldiers of the Nats Chat podcast are always appreciated. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chatter, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. Mark will be back with me on the next installment of the Nats Chat podcast. In the meantime, we will leave you with another terrific voice memo regarding memories and tales of October 2019. Lisa Masters in Los Angeles emailed us this. You can do this as well if you want to share with us your experiences from the Nationals World Series run in 2019. Record yourself telling the tale into your smartphone, and then you can email the file to us again, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Hey there, Mark and Al. First of all, thank you guys for continuing to put out such a great and consistent podcast. You have helped me rationalize everything that's happened during this difficult time of being a Nats fan. But on a brighter note, I wanted to share about my 2019 postseason memories, and I hope you'll enjoy them. I grew up in the DC area, but have been living in the LA area since 2013. And I was going to school out here in LA from 2009 to 2013. So during that time, I would come home every summer and catch as many games as I could. And when the Nats started winning during my college years, I told my family, if and when the Nats get all the way to the World Series, I'm dropping everything and we'll fly home for a game. I was banking on doing that when it happened, and I finally got to follow through on that in 2019, which at that point I was working a corporate job and well out of school. So it took some quick planning. My dad had an extra ticket to Game 4, and he was very kind to allow me to utilize that ticket and attend the game with him, which was pretty special. Game 4 was on Saturday, October 26th. So I booked a red-eye flight for that Friday night. I landed Saturday morning, went to the game Saturday night, and flew back to LA on Sunday without missing even an hour of work. So as we all know, that game was a total bust, but it was so exciting to be in my hometown and witnessing all of that excitement. And I was pretty much holding back tears when I got off the metro and I saw people, dancing and playing instruments in the street. It's just this moment that you could tell everyone had been waiting a long time for. But where the real memory kicks in is when I was flying back to LA on Sunday. I had a connection in Dallas, of all places. So I walk onto the plane in full Nats gear and find my seat. And I find out that my seat neighbor is a man dressed in full Astros gear. And he was holding a scorecard from Saturday's game and reading the little magazine from the game that was handed out at the park. So he was a pretty tried and true fan. He wasn't messing around. And even though the series was tied at this point, the Astros certainly felt and seemed to have more momentum at this point. And so I took my seat next to this guy for the next 4 hours. He was polite. I was polite. But he was 100% confident that his mighty team would be beating the underdogs at this point. And I had to play along to try and make it hurt a little less on my heart. And I landed and watched Game 5 from my apartment in complete misery, thinking how happy my mysterious seatmate must have been, my unnamed seatmate must have been. And, after that, we all know what happened and we all know how the story ends. And I don't want to be a bad sport, but I regularly think about that guy and wish I could have seen his reaction to the scrappy Nats taking it all in Houston, because obviously that was just awesome. But as for my very favorite moment of the 2019 playoffs, that's an easy one for me. It's the Howie Kendrick Grand Slam in LA. I was honestly more worried about playing the Dodgers than I was the Astros, because we have a known track record against the Dodgers and it's not a great one. But being in the LA area and having plenty of friends that are Dodger fans, that Grand Slam was I was just elated. I was screaming at the top of my lungs and it was incredible. So thanks guys for tossing out this idea of sharing these memories. Doing so hopefully can keep the hope alive to do it another time. Thanks guys.
Do you believe it?
I believe it because I saw it, Dave Jagler, sail over the wall to the 396 marker just to the right. And Kendrick, who'd had a tough series, robbed of some good chances for hits. Some other chances didn't come through. He had made 3 errors in the field, no doubt, not thinking about it then. And the Nationals' faith in him, 36-year-old Howie Kendrick with a grand slam in the 10th inning to put the Nats up by 4. Unbelievable.